time by Caracas is 6 p.m. and this is CBX Business News. The business news headlines are brought to you by QMax Wealth Management, making more possible. Bank dominance under fire, gas output set to double, and a new transatlantic supply chain pact. Good evening and welcome to CBX Business News for Monday, April 27, 2026. I'm Rashel Moncrieffe. Thanks for joining us. Coming up, Jamaica's banking sector is under scrutiny with concerns that market dominance is stifling competition and slowing fintech growth. Also ahead, Trinidad and Tobago could see natural gas output double as Touchstone Exploration pushes ahead with the Cascadura expansion project. And later, the United States and European Union strike a critical minerals pact aimed at strengthening supply chains and reducing global risk exposure. Stay with us as we unpack these stories and more right after the break.
FESCO started from 5 shareholders who believe that they could execute a fuel company as good as or as better than any multinational. The director shareholders always believe that the dealers within our network should be owners of the company. They believe that staff should be owners of the company. And specifically, also believe that the public should become shareholders. That cannot be facilitated by a bank loan. Our experience so far has translated into additional customers. Our transparency has allowed us to access credit easier and at better rates. So if you're a private company thinking about growing your profits, having better access to capital, I really think you should consider listing on the junior or the main market. Go ahead, have that conversation as soon as possible. We did it and we're very happy.
Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances Limited has been a part of Jamaica's manufacturing landscape for over 20 years. By crafting unique flavors and fragrances, we have become a part of your favorite household and food items such as beverages, ice cream, household cleaners, and much more. Known throughout the Caribbean for the highest quality, we continue to innovate with strong leadership, a dedicated team with integrity. We go the extra mile for our customers. Create the next taste sensation. Contact us at 876-9235-111 or visit our website, Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn pages.
The local news is brought to you by Derrimon Trading, better from the start. The Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances, Tease the Senses, and Pulse Investments. Welcome back to CBX Business News. We begin with a major structural constraint in Jamaica's financial system. High market concentration is now being flagged as a key barrier to competition, innovation, and the growth of digital finance. A World Bank-backed assessment is raising concerns that Jamaica's banking sector remains too concentrated, limiting competition and slowing the pace of financial innovation. Speaking at the recent launch of the bank's report on digital financial inclusion and transformation, Practice Manager for Finance, Competitiveness and Innovation, Harish Natarajan, says the report points to a system where a small number of large banks control the majority of financial assets and payment infrastructure.
The 2 largest banks represent over 70% of banking assets. And in a way, they pretty much control the payments market as well. There are very significant entry barriers which perpetuate some of the existing status quo, and notably the regulatory frameworks are not differentiated and proportionate, in a way inhibiting entry of new players. And then also the customer onboarding process is very difficult. So once a person has opened an account, he or she has no motivation to go and try to open another account.
The report is also pointing to deeper structural issues, suggesting that gaps in regulation and market access are restricting the entry of new financial service providers.
There is no clear path for the non-bank payment service providers in the country, new non-bank payment service providers to actually enter the market, compete with the incumbents. And this means that, in a way, there's some kind of a status quo, and the innovation is basically coming from the incumbents who might not necessarily have the right incentives.
Meanwhile, that lack of competition is feeding into another growing concern: Jamaica's slow pace in adopting the next generation of digital payments. Jamaica is now being warned it is falling behind in the global shift towards instant, real-time digital payments. According to the same World Bank-backed assessment, while countries across Latin America and beyond are rapidly deploying instant payment systems, Jamaica has yet to fully make the transition.
You can see very clear inflection points from the time fast payments were launched in a number of countries. Brazil, Argentina, Costa Rica, all of them are seeing just fast payments alone are more than 150 transactions per adult. By comparison, all the digital payments put together in Jamaica is about 50 per adult currently. And in these countries, you see 150, and that is because it's not that they're making more payments. It is just that you can make more payments digitally in those countries than in Jamaica.
That was the World Bank's practice manager for finance, competitiveness, and innovation, Harish Natarajan. The Jamaican government is signaling a decisive shift in how housing will be delivered, calling for a new class of enterprise-level contractors capable of building at scale. Speaking at the groundbreaking of the $1.99 billion Jamaican Galena housing development, Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness made it clear that small fragmented construction models will not be sufficient to meet the country's growing housing demand.
The notion of the contractor who was a good mason and all of a sudden decide now that he's going to become, the man who take on and bring together all the resources to build a house. That kind of thinking cannot continue to exist. Jamaica needs a contracting class that is thinking at enterprise scale, that will put the resources into their business to acquire the technical skills and competencies to integrate the technology and to develop the balance sheet to support the kinds of capital works that the government of Jamaica will be bringing to market.
Instead, the government is urging contractors to expand their operations both financially and technically.
For us to be able to make an impact on this 150,000 housing deficit, this figure that we have used as the kind of target of the number of housing we need to build to get ahead of informal settlements and housing construction, we're going to need good enterprise level contractors who can take on not just 1,000 or 2,000 houses. We need contractors who can take on 10,000 houses at a time.
That was Jamaica's Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness. In other news, a targeted humanitarian partnership is beginning to show measurable impact in hurricane-hit communities as Chorus International deepens its investment in Jamaica's post-disaster recovery. Working alongside JN Foundation and St. John Ambulance Jamaica, the Chorus team recently participated in a medical outreach mission in Wakefield, Trelawney, delivering critical healthcare services to residents still grappling with the aftermath of Hurricane Melissa. Chorus Associate Director for Humanitarian Programming, Emily Gross, is offering a clearer picture of the scale of devastation and the urgency of the response.
Being on the ground and seeing the reality of the situation is truly such a different picture and a different reality than what you see on the news or what you might imagine. But talking to people from the community here, talking to the JN Foundation team, talking to community representatives, you really get a sense of just how devastating the hurricane was and how impactful it was. I can see truly how critical the services are and how important the response is, and for our team and our project to show up together in these moments to ensure that the communities in need are getting the services.
That was Chorus International Associate Director for Humanitarian Programming, Emily Gross. We move to the latest updates from the JSE Equities. In Monday's trading session, the JSE market activity resulted in the trading of 107 stocks, of which 46 advanced, 38 declined, and 23 traded firm. Leading today's winners are Proven Group USD, Jetcon Corporation, Berger Paints Jamaica, and the GUS Corporation ordinary shares, while leading the losers are Medical Disposables and Supplies, Jamaica Public Service Company Limited 7%, JFP, and Caribbean Cream. The main index advanced by 1,537.46 points to close at 341,421.15 points. The junior market index, however, declined by 5.14 points to close at 3,167.74 points. It's time for the Market Education feature, brought to you by CARICRIS, Regional Ratings, Global Standards. In today's Market Education feature, we're looking at the term financial assets. Financial assets are intangible assets that derive their value from a contractual claim. Unlike physical assets, they do not have a physical form but represent ownership or a right to receive future cash flows. Common examples include stocks, bonds, bank deposits, and mutual funds. These assets can generate income through interest, dividends, or capital gains. Financial assets play a key role in investing, as they allow individuals and institutions to grow wealth, manage risk, and participate in financial markets. That was the Market Education feature, brought to you by CARICRIS, Regional Ratings, Global Standards. And that's it for the local news segment. Please stay with us. The regional news is up next. The local news is brought to you by Derrimon Trading, better from the start. The Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances, Tease the Senses, and Pulse Investments.
This project marks the celebration of our 30th Hall of Fame and aims to highlight the achievements, challenges, and invaluable lessons of those who have shaped and are shaping the future of our economy. Our aim is to celebrate the voices and stories of 30 remarkable leaders in Jamaica's private sector. Join us as we explore these narratives of resilience, leadership, and vision.
Welcome back. And now for the regional business news. Trinidad and Tobago's natural gas output could be on the verge of a major boost, with production at the Cascadura facility set to nearly double as Touchstone Exploration Trinidad Limited advances a key expansion project. Energy Minister Dr. Rudal Munilal says newly arrived heavy equipment at Point Lissus will support a gas compression project expected to increase output from 10 million to 20 million standard cubic feet per day. The equipment, shipped from Houston, will be installed at the Cascadura gas facility in the Ortoir block in Rio Claro. The minister says the project, set to come on stream by June, should help stabilize pressure along pipelines operated by the National Gas Company, which supply the Point Lissus industrial estate. The expansion forms part of broader efforts to boost gas supply amid ongoing shortages, with additional exploration activity involving ExxonMobil, Chevron, and China National Offshore Oil Corporation as the country pushes for additional energy investment. Meanwhile, a strategic push to build future talent in Guyana is underway. ExxonMobil is investing $30 million to expand science, technology, engineering, and mathematics STEM education as the country moves to strengthen its workforce and support long-term economic growth. President Dr. Irfan Ali says that digital lab technology could reduce costs while expanding access to science training, helping build a pipeline of skilled workers for targeted sectors. Speaking at the 70th Annual Conference of the Caribbean Public Health Agency recently, Ali positioned the investment as part of a broader human capital development strategy.
And here in Guyana, we are now working with ExxonMobil to invest $30 million in a STEM education center for children at a very young age, bringing them up in an environment of science, technology, innovation. Now, one of the difficulties in our education system is not only the fact that we don't have enough children in STEM or in sciences, it's the fact that it is too expensive sometimes to maintain labs in the secondary schools or the primary schools, the reagents, and all the things that are needed to keep those labs growing. But guess what? Technology has solved that. You can use a lab, a digital lab, to do the same experiment 100 times until you perfect it, and then go into the practical setting.
That was President of Guyana, Dr. Irfan Ali. And finally, weather-related disruption impacting economic activity in Dominica. The government has commenced damage assessments after heavy rains triggered landslides, damaged homes, and cut off access to key agricultural areas in the country's east. Speaking during an interview on Sunday, Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit says government teams are now evaluating losses affecting farmers, homeowners, and small businesses.
Our focus is on the East now, on the people who are in distress, the farmers who have been impacted, the homeowners who have been impacted, the small businesses who have been impacted, people who will not be able to go to school, students who will go to school tomorrow, and to ensure that we could clear the roads as quickly as possible so that by Tuesday they can be back in school, that the farmers whose access to the farms and to markets have been impacted, that in the shortest possible time frame that we can get this going. The small business lady the restaurant owner in Maricot who has been impacted again by a slide, that the government can come in and assist her in putting some mitigation system in place so that she can continue to earn a living for herself and her family.
He notes that blocked roads have disrupted access to farms and markets in several communities, reinforcing the need for long-term climate-resilient investment.
When we put infrastructure in place, we build homes, we build schools, we build health centers. We are building them with resilience in mind. That these storms are going to come, but when they come, we'll be in a better position to withstand them, and we'll be able to bounce back quicker.
That was Prime Minister of Dominica, Roosevelt Skerrit. It's now time for news from the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 17 securities, of which 6 advanced, 2 declined, and 9 traded firm. Today's winners are Trinidad Cement, JMMB Group, the West Indian Tobacco Company, and Trinidad and Tobago NGL, while leading the losers are National Enterprises Limited and Massey Holdings. Trading activity resulted in the following movements. The All TNT Index declined by 0.60 points to close at 1,392.92. The Composite Index advanced by 0.09 points to close at 961.65. The Cross-Listed Index also advanced, but by 0.12 points to close at 70. And the SME Index remained at 89.81. And we take a short break, but please do stay with us. The international news segment is up next.
Caribbean dreams, instant turmeric tea. What you put in is what you get out. What you put in is what you get out. Yeah. Build up your body, boost up your brain. Take on the world now. Say bye-bye pain. Caribbean dreams, instant turmeric tea. Be good to you. Caribbean dreams, instant turmeric tea. Distributed by Amalgamated Distributors Limited. It smells so good right now. Feeling so good right now. Yeah, yeah. It's feeling so good right now. Feeling so good right now. Yeah, yeah. It's feeling so good right now. Don't never ever ever wanna calm down. Oh no, no.
Welcome back to CBX Business News. Turning now to the international scene. A major transatlantic push to secure the building blocks of modern industry is now underway as the United States and European Union (EU) move to reduce dependence on concentrated sources of critical minerals. At the joint signing on Friday, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and EU Trade Commissioner Rashel Moncrieffe formalized a memorandum of understanding aimed at diversifying supply chains. There, Secretary Rubio expressed concerns that key inputs for energy, manufacturing, and technology remain overly concentrated, exposing major economies to disruption risks.
The overconcentration of these resources, the fact that they're dominated by just 1 or 2 places, is an unacceptable risk. We need diversity in our supply chains, diversity in the places we get critical minerals. And this memorandum of understanding, which isn't just going to be a piece of paper, it's going to be brought to life through real actions, are going to be important for the economic vibrancy of all of our economies, the global economy really, but also to the security of our country.
That was U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Meanwhile, the EU Trade Commissioner says the next phase will focus on execution, including coordinated projects and investment across the supply chain.
With this memorandum of understanding, I believe that we'll be more strategic together, we'll be delivering on our goals much faster than before, and we of course will be growing stronger together in this very important area. And indeed, the memorandum of understanding is very important. I will continue with Ambassador Greer to work on an action plan, and I totally agree with Mr. Secretary that now the real test will be the execution of this project. How can we transform these agreements which we are signing into the concrete, tangible projects to deliver for our business operators?
That was EU Trade Commissioner Rashel Moncrieffe. Meanwhile, These efforts to secure supply chains come as energy markets face mounting disruption. Goldman Sachs has raised its oil price forecast, warning that supply disruptions linked to the Iran conflict are tightening global markets. The bank now expects Brent crude to average $90 per barrel in the fourth quarter, up from $80 with U.S. crude projected at around $83. Analysts estimate that 14.5 million barrels per day of Persian Gulf production has been lost, triggering a sharp drawdown in global inventories. Goldman also warns that risks remain tilted to the upside, with prices potentially rising toward $120 per barrel if disruptions persist. Meanwhile, higher fuel costs are expected to weigh on economic activity, with Goldman forecasting a decline in global oil demand as consumers and businesses cut back in response to rising costs. At the same time, the surge in energy prices is now feeding directly into global inflation concerns. The world's major central banks are expected to keep borrowing costs unchanged this week as policymakers assess the inflation impact of the Iran conflict. Markets are pricing in a near certainty that the Federal Reserve, Bank of England, and European Central Bank will hold rates steady. But while rates may be on hold, the tone is expected to remain cautious. Analysts say central banks are now balancing two competing risks: rising inflation driven by higher energy costs and weakening economic momentum, as those same costs begin to slow demand. There are also growing concerns that a prolonged conflict could keep inflation elevated for longer, forcing policymakers to delay any move toward rate cuts. At the same time, tightening policy further carries its own risks, potentially exacerbating a slowdown or tipping economies toward contraction. And finally, financial markets are already reacting to that uncertain outlook. British equities closed lower on Monday, with the FTSE 100 falling 0.56% as investors turned cautious ahead of corporate earnings and central bank decisions. The pullback comes as markets weigh the likelihood that the Bank of England will hold its benchmark rate at 3.75% amid growing concerns about the strength of the UK economy. Recent data suggests underlying weakness is beginning to emerge. Figures from the Confederation of British Industry, CBI, show retail conditions deteriorating sharply, with the sales balance falling deeper into negative territory in April. That signals softer consumer demand, even as businesses face rising cost pressures linked to energy prices and broader geopolitical uncertainty. And that's it for the international segment of the newscast. The news recap is coming up on the other side of the break. And now to recap our top stories. In the local news, Jamaica bank dominance stifles competition, slows fintech growth. Regionally, TNT gas output set to double with Cascadura expansion push. And internationally, US-EU Mineral Pact targets supply chains, cuts risk exposure. Those were the stories making today's CBX Evening News. On behalf of the entire production team, I'm Rashel Moncrieffe. Thanks for watching CBX, your region, your business, your source.
I'm Jared, sales trainer.